Hello and welcome to this short video that shows you how to set up an event on Racedrone if you're one of our creator or administration users. So we'll have sent you a login for the administration portal. Here is the URL here. It's racedrone.net/admin. If you log in, you will then see a menu across the top. Now, the menu that you will see as a creator is limited. You won't see all of these options. The only ones you're interested in, the only ones you will actually see, are the events manager and also the tracker manager. I'll very quickly show you the tracker manager. In the tracker manager, you would see a list of the trackers which you are entitled to rename. In my case, I can see everybody's trackers, but you would perhaps just see 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, however many trackers you have got within your organization. They would be there, and if you wanted to go and edit those, there is a little icon here which is edit. None of the other features have any function, so you don't need to use anything. The only one you'll ever use is this, which is edit. And if you go in and if you want to change the name that's displayed on the tracking map, you could change that to Richard 123 or Gold Expedition, whatever you wish. So that's the only thing you're ever going to do in Tracker Manager, simply rename the trackers, and that is assuming perhaps you're using them for different DOV groups or different expeditions and you want to give them a different label on the map. Okay, so the other area you're going to go into is Events Manager. When you go into Events Manager for the first time, this will be completely empty. You won't see any at all, but as you add your own events, they will appear in this list. So the first time you want to go in and add your event, you will simply go onto this button here and click Add Event. If you subsequently want to go back and edit one or delete one, these are the two buttons here. This one is Edit, this one is Delete. So I'm going to go and add an event for the first time, and in there automatically it'll put your username, so you don't need to worry about that. And I'm going to put in here, this is a Gold D of E in the Lake District. You can call it whatever you wish, and this will form the URL name. So that you'll end up getting racedrone.net/event/ whatever you write in here, pretty much as the name. Password, obviously, if it's a DOV event, then you would usually want to put a password in there. So type the password in there. This here is not compulsory. This is if you want to capture specific times for when people reach specific locations. For example, you might have something labelled CP1, checkpoint 1, or CP2 in your file. This, in all honesty, is very rarely used for Duke of Edinburgh. It's mainly used for running races and maps. So you're not really obliged to put anything in there, but if you wish, you can just put 100 meters or 200 meters. What that actually means is how far can the person's GPS tracker be from any given checkpoint on the map before it is detected as the person has reached that location. So in this case, I'm going to say 200 meters, and that means as soon as they enter a 200-meter radius around a particular checkpoint, that would make a special entry into the kind of leaderboard function that we have. As I say, not really used for DOV, so you can either leave that empty, you can put a 0 in there, or you can just put 200 meters. These are purely optional. You can leave description empty. It isn't shown on the screen at all. Neither is this one, and neither is this one. So all three of those are just for your labeling purposes internally as administration. You don't actually need to fill those in. Again, distance, it's not used as for any kind of function other than displaying it on your list of events. So you could just put 20 miles in there or 30 miles. It doesn't really matter what you set it to. It's just a marker, so you can remember approximately what distance your expedition was. Event type, public or private. Okay, so if you want your expedition to appear in the public list of events when you go onto Racedrone and click View All Events, you would set that to public. However, in the case of most DOVs, most expeditions, you won't necessarily want people to know the expedition is taking place or be visible, so you just simply set that to private and it's hidden from the list. Start date. Okay, your start date is the start date of your event. So I'm going to start an event today. It's February the 12th. So I'm going to start the expedition today, and automatically we'll put the same date in. Now obviously very rarely will you be having an expedition that starts and ends on the same date, so all you'll do is go and select your end date. It'll automatically give you a span of 2 weeks. If you need it to span any longer than 2 weeks, you'll have to manually type in the date. So I could have this running to the 3rd of the 12th of March, for example, just by changing that. But in this case, I'll just make this expedition run, let's say, for a typical bronze or a silver expedition. So here we go, it's running from the 12th to the 14th. The start time and end time is quite important because that starts the time of the recording of the expedition which takes place. So if you think you're going to start around about 6 AM, set it to 6 and leave that at 00 and AM. And the end time, you're probably going to finish, I would imagine, probably before 8 o'clock. So I'll set this to finish at 8:59. This is where you put your emergency contact telephone numbers in there for the SOS feature. And because this is effectively can be used as an international service, you need to put your country code in front. You don't need to put the plus though, so you can just put 447-880-966-727, which is my contact number anyway. And you can put up to 3 in here, so all 3 of them would receive an emergency SOS message in the event that someone pushes the SOS button on the trackers. So you can either put 1, leave the other 2 empty, or you could fill all 3. It's entirely left with you. Powered by, leave that empty, it's not used for DOV. Upload logo, again, you can upload a logo which is displayed on the screen. This is more commonly used by races, cycling races, running races, and not really used by DOV. But if you wanted to put your school logo or something like that in the corner of the tracking screen, you can upload a logo into there, and you could add a HTTPS or HTTP link, and when they click on the logo that would link to your school website, for example. I don't think you'll necessarily use that for DOV, but you might do. The root file. Okay, this is this is an important one here. So this is where you're going to associate the file which you might have created for your expedition. As a very minimum, the system needs what's called a KML file, which is created by Google Earth, and you can create that with Google Earth, or you can create your file with eDOV or memory map or track logs, and those applications will usually save the files in a GPX format. And next week we're going to give you the ability, so when I say next week, that should be sometime in late February, you're going to gain the ability to import either a KML file or one or multiple GPX files. What I mean by that is each school or each expedition might be 3 days long, and you might have when the groups create their files in eDOV, you can export each one of those days as a GPX file. Now obviously you want to see all 3 of those on the map, so when you click choose file on here, you would click on that and it'll bring up the system to browse through to your computer, and then you can either click on one KML file if you happen to like creating your expeditions using Google Earth, but more commonly you will have created it using eDOV. And after you've exported the file from DOV, you can then click on choose file, click that one file, and that will add it to the expedition. Or you can hold down the control key or the shift key and add multiple GPX files. So let's say you had 6 different files, you can select all 6 of them at once, and they will all be associated with your event. And that feature to add up to many GPX files is, as I say, coming at the end of February. At the moment, for the next week or so, it's just expecting one particular file. Once you've added your file on, you're then given the option to want to select either Ordnance Survey maps or not. Again, that will depend on your subscription. If you've asked or paid for OS maps, that will be available to you. If you haven't, then that will always say no. Map types, you can get it to default automatically to one particular type of map. So you might prefer the map to load automatically with a satellite map, or a terrain map, or a road map, or finally an OS map. The bottom two, ignore those for the time being. They are for an upcoming upgrade, which we'll let you know about later in the year. Multiple routes, you can ignore this for the time being. This is also going to be very shortly removed. Distance format, you will usually just leave that as standard. This feature is just used when we are setting up some special events which work as the crow flies, and some of them work as lapped events, but for all DV, just leave that as standard. Leaderboard enable, you would usually click no for an EDV, for a DV event. If you do happen to have added specific checkpoints that are labelled CP1, CP2, CP3, CP4, and you want to see times and things as people pass through them, then you would enable a leaderboard. But for a Duke of Edinburgh, then you will probably not use that feature. How frequently would you like to refresh the map? I'm going to say once a minute. And how many tracking licenses means how many trackers are you adding to your expedition. So if you're using all 10, just put 10 on there. And then this, for the second bit down here, this bit under here, sorry, allowed maps, is going to be added in a future upgrade, so ignore that for now. So for the time being, you don't need to add anything onto that, just leave them all as no. And then all you would do is save event. So let me just very quickly run down to the top, from the top, and let you know what you do need to enter. So if you're doing a DV, you would enter the name, you would enter a password, you could enter the checkpoint radius as 200, you can leave this blank, this blank, this blank. In the distance, you can put anything you want in there, it doesn't matter. Event location, I'm going to put Cornwall. I'm going to say this is a private event because I don't want it to appear in the list of events. I've got my start and end date, my start and end time. I've added an emergency mobile contact. I don't want to add any logos or anything along those lines. And I'm going to add one single route file which I've created here. And then we'll scroll down. I do want to have Ordnance Survey maps. I'd rather have the satellite view as the standard one. Sorry, I forgot to mention PHP. Leave that to the default, which is PHP for which URL. Later in the year, we're doing a Java upgrade, and we'll tell you about that later. And then you'll be able to use this feature here. Multiple routes, just set that to no. It's going to be removed from this option fairly soon. Distance format, leave as standard. Leaderboard, you can leave that set to no. Map frequency, refresh it once per minute or once every 2 minutes. And the tracking licenses is how many trackers are you taking on the expedition. The allowed maps, as this says, is for Java only. This hasn't been completely added. So for the time being, ignore all those, leave them set to no, and then click Save Event. Okay, once that event has been saved, it would appear in your list of events. So here it is here, which is your gold DV lakes. And let me go in. And the final piece of the puzzle, what I want to do is associate some trackers with it. So right down here at the bottom, add a single participant. I'm going to make them be number 1. You can use any number you wish. You can make it match your trackers. Let's say your tracker was number 950. You could call it number 950, or simply you can call it number 1. And I'll say my tracker is tracker 901. Okay, and the name which you've added in the tracker manager will automatically appear on there, and country and group you can leave as standard. They don't have any effect on a DV. And then you would click add, and that one has been added. If I scroll down here, you can see that one has been added down there. If I scroll up a little bit, I'm going to add another one, which is number 2. I'm going to have that as tracker 902. I will have shared with you what your tracker numbers are called, and I'll add that one as well. Okay, and they've automatically been added to your expedition. So if you now go back onto Events Manager and if I was to click on this URL here, it will automatically bring up the expedition which I've just created. You see it's defaulted to the satellite map which I requested. This is the KML file which I added, which has got the routes in there, the start and various checkpoints I've happened to have added in there. And here we can see Tracker 901 and Tracker 902, which are these people. This is a group of people that have been put on there, red group and blue group. And that's all there is to setting up an expedition. Let me just close that one down there. So if you want to edit that, you can click on that button as you've just seen. If you ever wanted to delete one, you can remove that there. And that's pretty much all you need to do as far as setting up expeditions. If you need any help at any point in time or want us to set up your expeditions for you, just let us know, get in contact and we'll do it for you. Thank you very much.